Deuteronomy 29:10 says, "You are standing, all of you, before the Lord your God, the heads of your tribes, your elders, and your officers, all the men of Israel," and then it says, "your little ones, your wives, and the foreigner who is in your camp, from the one who chops your wood to the one who draws your water." So before they even entered the land of Israel, Moses had arranged all this meeting about his law, and everybody had to be there. Elderly, kids, women, foreigners, and wood chopper, right? I mean, he didn't leave out anybody. Everybody was present. And Moses' successor Joshua did the same thing. Joshua 8:35, "There was not a word of all that Moses commanded that Joshua did not read before all the assembly of Israel, and the women and the little ones and the sojourners who lived among them. All the people could come and hear the word of the Lord together." This continued in the kingdom. 2 Chronicles 20:13, "Meanwhile all Judah stood before the Lord with their little ones, their wives, and their children." Now, apparently there's a difference between the little ones and the children here, but they're all included. I guess, like if they're under, age 3, then they're little ones, but I don't know. Ezra, when they came back from the exile, Ezra 10:1, "While Ezra prayed and made confession, weeping and casting himself down before the house of God, a very great assembly of men, women, and children gathered to him out of Israel, for the people wept bitterly." And I want you to see they even included infants in these worship gatherings. Joel 2, "Blow the trumpet in Zion, consecrate a fast, call a solemn assembly, gather the people, consecrate the congregation, assemble the elders, gather the children, even nursing infants. Let the bridegroom leave his room, and the bride her chamber." Now, these texts are descriptive, not prescriptive. And what I mean by that is they're describing what happened. They're not saying, "Thou shalt make sure that infants are in every worship gathering." That's not what the text says. That would be wrong of me to do so. It's not a sin to have a nursery or children's church or a youth meeting while the church is assembled. However, that was the assumption. That was the pattern in the Old Testament. Now, there is one maybe counterexample, if you will, where those who couldn't understand were excluded from the meeting. Nehemiah 8 says, "Ezra the priest brought the law before the assembly, both men and women, and all who could understand what they heard, on the first day of the 7th month. And he read from it facing the square before the water gate from early morning until midday, in the presence of the men and the women and those who could understand." So, we have a qualifier, those who could understand, all who could understand. That would exclude those who do not understand, whether they were foreigners and didn't know the language, or whether they were, infants and didn't understand the language itself yet. But those who could understand were at this assembly. By the way, they would have been there for 6 hours, everyone who could understand, including the kids. So don't ever complain about my preaching length, okay? 6 hours, gee whiz. But this was dominant practice. Slave, free, women, men, foreigner, native, all gathered as part of the assembly. And here's the question. Why? Why? I mean, are infants and children really going to understand this solemn fast? I mean, Joel, what if a baby starts crying? You don't even have a microphone yet. Why do you want all these little ones in the gathering, along with the elderly? Perhaps the church in the 21st century, we have overemphasized verbal communication at the expense of community. Yes, certainly understanding with words are important. There are other things, though, that the assembled congregation does and feels together that are also important. It's important for kids to see mom and dad, grandparents, the generations, all gathered together, listening to the Word of God being taught, singing together. It's important for the elderly to hear the cries of infants, to hear young voices singing praises to God. Maybe a lot of the pessimism we experience in this day and age, in large part, is due to our isolation from the next generation. those who are maybe more qualified as senior saints, when all of our friends are going through chronic pain, endless doctor's appointments, and nearing death, that can take a toll on you mentally. But I'm telling you, it's hard to be pessimistic about the future when you hear teenagers sharing about how much they love Jesus and how they're sharing Jesus with their friends at school. And young people, it's important for you to see an elderly saint who may struggle to walk into the gathered assembly to sit down at her seats. I mean, what do you think that communicates about the importance of showing up to church to a young person? I mean, they're up late because they were watching YouTube and playing Fortnite or something. And they're like, I don't want to go to church, I'm too tired. And then here's this 80-year-old woman with back problems who continues to come to church Sunday after Sunday. It's like, grow up, get to church, drink a Red Bull, you'll be fine, You need to be here. Church is not about you. What did you get out of it? What does it mean for you? Church is about God. And if you love God, you'll serve His people. Biblically, we ought to think of others before we even think of our own needs. And things like presence, being together, hearing and seeing, they're important. In family dinners, we bring our son Sam to the dinner table every night, and Sam, believe it or not, he doesn't understand all of our conversations. Okay? He doesn't even know how to use a fork yet, but Sam is growing. He's learning. He's observing. He understands presence and being together with the family. And so it is with our church families.